AITA for ruining New Year's by doing something that made my dad collapse at midnight? My name is Evan. I'm 32 years old, and in my family, I'm officially the responsible one. They say it like a compliment, but it has always sounded more like a punishment. I'm the older of two brothers. My younger brother, Bryce, is the friendly one, the funny one, the golden boy. I'm the one who studied engineering, who left home early, who's always working and never has time for family. Until recently, every New Year's Eve was the same. I would arrive with some food, a decent bottle of wine that I paid for, my mother complaining that I didn't bring a girlfriend, my father half silent in front of the TV, and Bryce making a grand entrance late, as if the year couldn't begin without him. Not this year. This year, on December 31st, I started the day alone in my small one-bedroom apartment with a frozen pizza in the freezer and my phone face down on the table. The tension had been building for weeks, but I still thought they would end up doing what they always did: yell, manipulate, dramatize, and then send me the address and time. At 1:37 p.m., the group chat notification popped up. Family. It wasn't a celebratory GIF. It wasn't a meme. It was my mother. Evan, we've been talking with your father and your brother. It's better if you don't come tonight for New Year's. I stared at it as if it were the wrong message. Sorry, was the only thing I wrote. Her reply took less than a minute. It's just that everything is so tense since the thing with the bank. We don't want arguments. And you've been acting weird. You'll just make everyone uncomfortable. I felt as if a glass of ice water had been thrown over me. I read it 3 times. Weird, uncomfortable, as if I were a problematic guest and not their older son. Bryce left a thumbs up emoji on my mother's message. Not a single word, just that. My father wrote, "Listen to your mother. We'll talk later." I've heard that phrase my entire life. We'll talk later. We never talked. Things just piled up. I didn't answer. I closed the chat, muted the notifications, and threw my phone on the sofa as if the device itself were to blame. So I spent the afternoon of the 31st cleaning the counter that was already clean, taking the same t-shirt in and out of the closet, opening the fridge every 10 minutes, as if a different family might suddenly appear inside. At 11:55 p.m., while half the country was watching the ball drop in Times Square, I was sitting at my small table with a now-cold pizza and a glass of cheap sparkling wine. On TV, the countdown from New York City. In my living room, silence. I promised myself I wouldn't look at my phone. Still, right after midnight, I couldn't resist and unlocked the screen. Nothing from the family chat. Not a Happy New Year. Not a cheesy sticker, just messages from friends and work. I took a deep breath, made a toast to myself, and told myself, okay, this is the year I stopped chasing after them. And right at 12:01 a.m., while the fireworks were still going off outside, the phone started to vibrate. Bryce, incoming call. I picked it up out of pure curiosity. Hello. I heard background noise, voices, the TV on very loud, but my brother's voice sounded strange, shaky. What did you do? He blurted out without a greeting. I frowned. What are you talking about? Dad just saw the news, he said, almost shouting. He can't breathe. Mom's hysterical. They found out about everything. Everything, Evan. I remained silent, the glass in my hand. On the TV, a host was smiling. In my living room, finally, everything clicked, because yes, I had done something. And they, my perfect family, who didn't want me to make anyone uncomfortable, had just seen it live. And that was only the beginning. For you to understand why that 12:01 a.m. call was so satisfying and painful at the same time, I have to go back. My story with them doesn't start with a news report, but with something much simpler. Money. Always money. For as long as I can remember, in my house, affection was measured in dollars. They would buy Bryce new sneakers because the poor thing wears them out at practice. They would tell me, "You're simpler, Evan. You don't need so much." I started working at a grocery store in the afternoons when I was 17. My mother didn't say, "That's great, how responsible." She said, "You should help out with something. We don't live on air here." My first paycheck went to the electricity bill and my dad's car registration. They didn't even ask me. My mother just said, "We just transferred it from your account, honey, since you weren't using it anyway." I studied computer science thanks to scholarships, low-paying jobs, and a lot of coffee. Meanwhile, Bryce changed his major twice to find his passion, traveled with friends who paid for him, and magically always had a better phone than mine. When my father lost his job at 52, it was as if everyone had come to an agreement. The new family bank was named Evan. Just until I get back on my feet, my father would say. It's just that your brother is still in school. He can't start working now, my mother would say. You're in tech. They make good money there. they would both conclude. I was an intern making $1,000 a month, but they already talked as if I were running a major tech company. It started like that. $50 for groceries, $100 for gas, $120 for the car insurance, an overdue utility bill. All with the same phrase, "We'll pay you back later." Nothing ever came back. When I got my first serious job at a consulting firm with a modest salary, I thought, finally, I can breathe a little. Mistake. My mom learned the exact date my paycheck was deposited. On the 30th of every month, the messages would start. "When do you get paid? Everything has piled up on us again. If you don't mind, can you send some money over and we'll transfer it back to you later?" Transfer it back. It makes me laugh now. When Bryce finally finished a degree that I practically paid for, my parents were bursting with pride. "Your brother is a genius. You'll see how far he goes," my father would say at every dinner. Bryce enrolled in a private master's program for $40,000. Who co-signed the student loan? I did. "Because you have a stable job and good credit. Honey, you're more secure at your age," my mother said, as if it were an honor. Up to that point, I still swallowed the story that it's family, it's normal to help. I felt guilty if I said no. If you've grown up in a family where they constantly tell you that you're the strong one, you know what I'm talking about. Strong means the one who carries all the weight. The first small crack appeared with something very specific, Bryce's car. One morning, the bank calls me. Unknown number, serious tone. "Good morning, Evan Miller?" "Yes, this is he. We're calling about the auto loan. There are 3 unpaid installments." I didn't even have a car or an auto loan in my name. I went to the bank in person, thinking it was a mistake. It wasn't. There was a contract, my full name, my social security number, my signature. A signature that was not mine. The loan, $20,000. Holder, Evan Miller. Real beneficiary, Bryce. I remember the paper trembling in my hands. That same afternoon, I went to my parents' house with the crumpled contract in my backpack. My mother was making coffee. Bryce was on the sofa with his laptop, watching videos. "What is this?" I blurted out, throwing the contract on the table. My mother didn't even flinch. "Oh, the bank already called. They're so annoying." "Evan, don't raise your voice, my head hurts. You took out a loan in my name? You forged my signature." My father looked up from the TV, annoyed more by the volume than the content. "Don't be so dramatic. Your family." Bryce smiled uncomfortably. "I was going to talk to you about it." When they started garnishing my paycheck. My mother rolled her eyes. "It's for your brother's car. He needs it to go to interviews." "What's the problem?" "You would have signed it anyway." That, "you would have signed it anyway," left me breathless. It wasn't an apology, it was a justification. I obviously sorted out the issue, refinanced the loan under my own name, and absorbed the debt because I preferred that to having a fraud complaint circulating within my own family. Bryce promised to get up to date as soon as he started working. He never did. That's when I started to keep my distance. I didn't cut them off completely, but I stopped sending money just because. When my mother would ask, saying, "Your father's blood pressure is through the roof, Evan. We can't stress him with these things," I started to reply. "I can't. I have my own expenses now." My own expenses was a small savings account that, for the first time in my life, didn't disappear at the end of the month. With those savings, a few years later, I started a small software development company with a friend from college. They never really understood what I did for a living. "Evan does computer stuff," my mother would tell the neighbors with that tone reserved for something strange. What they didn't know was that this computer stuff started to turn a profit, much more than I myself expected. But I didn't tell them anything, because every time they smelled a dollar, they turned into something else. While my account grew, other things started happening in the family chat. Bryce opened a bar with some friends. It went badly, and he went into debt. My parents had co-signed, and the bank was pressuring them. And of course, who did they look to? Me. One day, 3 weeks before Christmas, my mother wrote, "Son, we need you to help us with the bar situation. It's only $800 a month for a while. Your brother is very stressed out." I read, "Only $800 a month," and saw the previous 15 years flash before my eyes. I took a breath, and for the first time, instead of saying, "I'll see what I can do," I wrote, "No." Just that. 10 seconds later, the storm began. "What do you mean, no?" from Mom. "Evan, don't be like that," from Dad. "Dude, it's just a bridge until the bar recovers," from Bryce. The bar was already practically finished. I knew it. They did too. That conversation was the start of the war, but the big battle, the real one, came a few days before that New Year's Eve when they told me I would make everyone uncomfortable. The week before New Year's Eve, the family chat seemed quiet. Too quiet. I knew they were planning something. On December 27th, my mother called me. Not a text. A direct call. Evan, we need to talk seriously, she said, using that voice she uses when she plays the victim. I'm listening. The bank has given us an ultimatum about the bar. If we don't catch up on 3 payments, they could start foreclosure proceedings on the house. Silence. I had heard this story many times before. How much is it? I asked, knowing the number was going to hurt. It's about, well, the interest went up, she started to hedge. How much, Mom? Around $2,500. But you make good money, Evan. For you, it's not that much. That's when something inside me broke completely. I didn't think about the $2,500. I thought about being 17, about my first paycheck being taken for the electricity bill, about the car loan with my forged signature, about the years of paying for things I never even used. I took a deep breath. I'm not going to pay that, I said. Slowly. Silence. I could hear the TV in the background, the usual afternoon show. Don't be cruel, my mother snapped. This is your family. Exactly, I replied. It's my family, and my family has been treating me like an ATM for 15 years. Now you think you're better than us. Her voice started to rise. All because you do your little computer things. I heard my father in the background. What's wrong? My mother put him on speakerphone. I know because the sound changed to that weird echo. Your son says he's not going to help us with the house, she announced as if she were pointing at a criminal. My father's voice came through dry. Evan, don't do this to us. It's our house. The house you grew up in. The house you practically kicked me out of when I said I wanted to get my own place and stop paying for everything. I blurted out. Don't start with the accusations, my mother cut in. We've all made mistakes. Yes, I said. You forged my signature for Bryce's car, for example. Silence again. That's in the past, my father said, annoyed. And besides, it was done for your brother. Exactly. Everything is done for your brother. His major, his masters, his car, his bar, and always with my money. Bryce joined the call without anyone inviting him. Group video call. I saw his face, half annoyed, half nervous. Dude, you're being dramatic, he said. We're just asking you for a hand. No, I repeated. You're asking for my future again, and I'm done. My mother clutched her chest. Literally. Evan, you're going to give me a heart attack. The stress isn't what is affecting you, Mom, I said. What's affecting you is that for the first time, I'm saying no. I listed everything for them, as if I were reading from a bank statement. Electricity payments, car registration, gas. Your bills, Dad, when you were unemployed. Bryce's master's degree. The car payments he never made. The small loans that were never returned. My voice was trembling, but I kept going. I've paid for years as if I were your parent, but I am your son and your brother, not Bryce's life insurance policy. My father clicked his tongue. You've always been so resentful, Evan. I've always been very useful, I corrected. The difference is that now you don't need a son, you need a bank. And I am not a bank. My mother fired her last shot. If you don't help us, don't show your face at home on the 31st. I'm not going to let you ruin New Year's Eve with your negativity. There was the threat. I felt the old reflex of fear. Losing them, being left alone, being the one who doesn't go to the party. But for the first time, the fear didn't weigh as much as the exhaustion. Okay, I replied. Then I won't come. What do you mean, okay? Bryce jumped in. Just that. I'm not coming. I'm not coming to New Year's Eve, or to rescue the bar, or to sign anything else. It's over. My mother started crying instantly. I knew one day the money would change you, she sobbed. You're becoming selfish. No, Mom, I said, calm now. The money didn't change me. What changed me was seeing how you treated me when you thought I had nothing. I hung up and immediately left the family group chat. My phone vibrated with individual messages, veiled insults. I can't believe it. After everything we've done for you. I didn't reply to any of them. That was the real breaking point. Not a shout, not a slammed door, but a very clear and silent, this is the end. 2 days later, my mother sent me that message. It's better if you don't come to New Year's Eve. You'll just make everyone uncomfortable. And they thought they had won. They didn't know that while they were busy assigning blame, I had made a very different decision, one that would end up on the news. My company had been negotiating a sale for months. A multinational corporation wanted to acquire our software and the entire team. I, the weird son who does computer stuff, was about to close a deal that would change my life. The day we signed the agreement, my bank account went from, I'm doing okay, to my future grandchildren will be okay. It wasn't lottery money. It was years of work, of sleepless nights, of cold coffees and putting up with difficult bosses until I could be the boss. The only people I told anything to were my best friend, Sierra, and my lawyer. Not my family. Not because I was afraid, but because I already knew what they would do with that information. Turn it into a list of things I had to pay for them. What I did do, in stark contrast to everything I had experienced, was something I never imagined. I donated a significant portion. At home, they had always told me we weren't in a position to help anyone. We had enough of our own problems. I had been our own problems for years, and yet they were never able to see me as a person, only as a resource. So when a public hospital launched a campaign to modernize its pediatric oncology unit, it struck a chord with me. I remembered my 18-year-old self sleeping in my car because there was no room at home. And I thought about kids who don't even get a chance. I scheduled a meeting with the hospital's foundation. They received me in a small office with posters of smiles taped to the wall. "How can we help you, Evan?" the director asked me. I swallowed hard. I'm not used to being the one who gives, at least not in these terms. "I want to make a donation," I said. "A large one, but anonymous." We talked numbers. The woman looked at me as if she expected me to back out. I signed. The plan was simple. They could mention a local entrepreneur from the tech sector, but without a name. I just wanted to see the renovated ward one day, maybe sit in the hospital cafeteria and silently know that I had laid a brick there. But leaks travel faster than family gossip. A local journalist contacted the foundation, then my company, then me. "Look," I told him, "I don't want to get famous for this. I don't need photos." "I understand," he replied. "But we need names to inspire others, and so does the foundation." I thought about it for a long time and finally agreed on one condition. No talk of being a self-made man. No, if you want it, you can get it speeches. Just the facts, the donation, what it would be used for, and why public healthcare deserves that, and more. The interview was published on the local news website on December 30th. A long article, neutral photos in my office, nothing out of the ordinary. I didn't share it on my social media, only colleagues, friends, and, well, the internet read it. What I didn't know was that the local TV channel was preparing a short segment for New Year's Eve, right before midnight. Apparently, they loved the contrast. Young entrepreneur helps children's hospital. It looked nice between commercials for champagne and cars. While my family was setting out platters of food and complaining that nothing ever goes right for them, the TV started to play. And now, a story of hope here in our city. There I was on the screen, in a blue shirt, looking uncomfortable. Evan Miller, a software engineer and founder of the startup RPD, has donated $500,000 for the complete renovation of the pediatric oncology ward at the General Hospital. $500,000. The number bounced off the walls of my parents' living room. Bryce told me about it later, but I can almost see the scene. My mother, with her glass frozen in her hand. My father glued to the TV, his eyebrows rising higher and higher. And the key sentence from the report. Evan, who acknowledges having gone through very tough years financially, decided that now that his company has been acquired by an international group, he wanted to give back some of what he had received. The camera focused on my face, my full name in a caption, my company, the word acquired, the donation amount. All of this, in the house where they had told me a week earlier, "Don't come. You'll just make everyone uncomfortable." When Bryce called me at 12:01 a.m. saying that Dad couldn't breathe, it wasn't a real medical emergency. I later found out he was fine. It was the shock. The shock of discovering that the son they took for granted, the one they treated like an ATM, was something more. And above all, that he had given away $500,000 without a single one passing through their hands. "Were you ever planning on telling us?" My brother spat over the phone that early morning. I was still sitting at my table, the cold pizza in front of me, the glass in my hand. "Telling you what?" I asked, though I knew what he was talking about. "Everything. The company, the buyout, the hospital. $500,000, Evan. $500,000. He paused and lowered his voice. "And you tell us you don't have $2,500 to help?" There it was. The exact sentence I knew was coming. "It's not that I don't have it," I replied calmly. "It's that I don't want to." There was a silence, so long I thought the call had dropped. "Are you listening to yourself?" he finally said. "Dad had to take 2 pills for his blood pressure. Mom is crying. They say you've humiliated them in front of everyone." "I haven't said a single word about you," I replied. "I haven't mentioned the family or my history with you. If they feel humiliated, it's because they're looking in a mirror." I could hear my mother shouting something in the background. Bryce moved the phone away a bit. "Mom says you did this to mess with us," he translated. "That you'd rather give the money to strangers than to your own blood." I swallowed. That was the real wound. Not the money they didn't receive, but the message that they were no longer my priority. They aren't strangers, I said. They're sick children. You are adults who have always had choices. Bryce let out a dry laugh. You think you're so moral, don't you? Such a hero. No, Bryce, I replied. I just got tired of being your backup plan. My mother suddenly grabbed the phone. Evan, listen to me. Her voice was broken, but also furious. What you have done is a betrayal. Your father and I gave you life. We raised you. The normal thing would have been to think of your family first. I've been thinking about the family since before I was old enough to vote, I told her. I've paid your bills, your whims, your mistakes. I've bailed you out of your bad decisions and put up with you calling me selfish every time I didn't want to do more. I paused. For the first time, I thought about something other than patching up your holes. And yes, I chose for that money not to go to you. My mother started with her usual manipulation. Fine then. When we lose the house, let the children at the hospital give you a round of applause. If you lose the house, I replied, it will be because of Bryce's bar, because of co-signing things without reading them, and because of treating money like it's infinite. Not because of my donation. My father yelled in the background. Don't ever set foot in this house again. Do you hear me? You're an ungrateful son. I smiled. For the first time, that threat didn't scare me. Don't worry, Dad, I said. You already warned me a few days ago. It's better if you don't come to New Year's. I'm just following orders. I hung up. I blocked the house number. I blocked my mother. I left Bryce's messages open only because I knew that sooner or later, he would try to negotiate. The following days were a festival of passive-aggressive messages from the numbers of aunts, uncles, cousins, even the next-door neighbor. Your mother is devastated, son. How could you do this to them? You don't just publicize your wealth like that. Then people ask why your parents are struggling. If you had just given a little bit. Meanwhile, in my real life, the one outside the drama, very different things were happening. The hospital sent me pictures of the construction starting. Peeling walls covered in children's drawings about to be replaced with something more dignified. At the company, we closed out the year toasting with cheap beer in plastic cups in the office, laughing, talking about vacations. I started sleeping better, without that constant fear that an unknown number would be another problem with the bar, another overdue bill, another drama that only you can solve, Evan. The consequences for them also arrived. Without my safety net, they had to sit down with the bank for real. They had to sell Bryce's car, renegotiate their debts, and stop taking out loans. For the first time in decades, they were forced to live with what they actually had. And yes, there were fights between them. My aunt told me, your mother is furious with your father, she said. She says it's his fault for spoiling Bryce. Your father says it's her fault for managing their finances poorly. And Bryce is going around saying you ruined his life. I listened to all of this with a calmness I had never felt before, because for the first time, the problem was no longer mine. 6 months have passed since that New Year's Eve I spent alone with a cold pizza while half the country saw my face on the news. I still haven't set foot in my parents' house. My mother tried to reconnect a couple of times with soft messages. We're just a family that made mistakes. Maybe you can come over for coffee one day, with no hard feelings. But every time I read, no hard feelings, a whole list of unsaid things came to mind, of emotional and real bills that I paid. I didn't answer. With Bryce, I had one last conversation, and I think something important was settled there. He met me at a neutral coffee shop, without my money involved. He arrived late, as always, with that angry child look on his face. I still think what you did was wrong. It was the first thing he said, without a greeting. I know, I replied. Because for the first time, what I did wasn't to help you. He ordered a coffee, I ordered water. You really preferred a bunch of kids you don't even know over your own brother? He asked. I preferred to stop bailing out your decisions, I told him. I gave you opportunities, I paid for your studies, car, masters, I covered your debts. Did you ever stop to think that you were living a life you couldn't afford because you knew I would be there? He fell silent. He looked at the table. I didn't ask you to donate anything, he muttered. Just to lend us a hand. You didn't want a hand, Bryce. You wanted the whole arm again. I told him something I had never said so clearly. The difference between those children and you is that they didn't choose to be sick. You did choose every loan, every bad business decision, every whim. I took a deep breath. I'm not paying for decisions I didn't make anymore. We didn't shout. There was no scene, just a huge wall of reality between us. At the end of our talk, he looked at me and said something that hurt more than all the previous insults. Well, I guess we don't have a brother anymore. I smiled sadly. I was always your brother, I said. It's just that now, I'm also my own person. He stood up, left his coffee half full, and walked away without saying goodbye. I left the coffee shop feeling strange, but light. My life today is simple, almost boring, and I love it that way. I work in a field I enjoy. I have a team that respects me. I pay my bills. I help where I want to, not where I'm obligated to. My apartment is still small, but it doesn't feel small anymore. It feels like mine. Sometimes, when I walk by the hospital, I go into the cafeteria. I sit with a coffee and watch parents come and go with faces of fear, exhaustion, hope. No one knows who I am. No one needs to know. The new ward isn't finished yet, but you can already see freshly painted walls, new furniture, new drawings. I think about the 17-year-old boy I was, watching his parents empty his bank account without asking, and about the 32-year-old man who decided to break that pattern. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: you can't save people who don't want to stop sinking the boat, but you can stop sinking with them. My family says the money changed me. The truth is, the money only did one very specific thing. It gave me the ability to choose. To choose who I help. To choose who I spend my time with. To choose which calls I answer on New Year's Eve. And now my rule is simple. If for you to be comfortable, I have to destroy my boundaries, it's not love, it's a toxic relationship. I am no longer anyone's bank. I am no longer the son who accepts everything because family comes first. I am Evan. I am 32 years old, and finally, I pay for my own life, but no longer at the expense of myself. I'm on Evan's side here because his mother texted him at 1:37 p.m. to tell him not to come to New Year's Eve so that no one would feel uncomfortable. They demanded $2,500 to cover for Bryce's bar after years of "we'll pay you back later." And they went as far as to take out a $20,000 car loan in his name with a signature that wasn't his. What this story teaches us is that being the responsible one can turn into a role you never accepted, and that the first no reveals what the real expectations were all along. 2 practical things: protect your finances. New passwords, 2-factor authentication, credit and identity monitoring services, and don't co-sign for anyone. And put your boundaries in writing. A clear message with conditions, a deadline, and "I can't" as a complete answer. I've lived a smaller version of this when a one-time help started being treated like a fixed payment until I put it in writing and stopped it. What lesson do you take away from this story? Especially after that 12:01 a.m. call, when the TV announced your name and the $500,000 donation to the hospital. Comment. This story is a powerful reminder that your value is not measured by your utility to others. Setting boundaries is not an act of rejection. It is an act of profound self-respect. You can be a kind and supportive person without carrying the weight of choices that are not yours to make in the first place. True generosity blossoms from a place of freedom and choice, not from obligation or guilt. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose your own peace, even if it means disappointing someone. Healing often begins with the quiet decision to stop participating in dynamics that harm your well-being. Remember, you deserve to be loved for who you are, not just for what you can provide. Your energy is a precious resource, and you have the right to decide where to invest it. Learning to prioritize your own needs is not selfish. It is the foundation for a healthy and balanced life. I hope you give yourself permission to build a future that feels peaceful from the inside out. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.